Online lottery beating out more than 1.5 million who also tried. An overflow crowd of more than 6,500, meanwhile, will be watching across the way on a widescreen video screen at the Nokia Theater. And all over the world, people are watching on television and in theaters. What they and we will all see includes performances by Stevie Wonder, Mariah Carey, Usher, Lionel Richie, Kobe Bryant, Jennifer Hudson, John Mayer, and Queen Latifah. Many other celebrities will be in attendance, but also of note, who we won't see. Michael Jackson's good friend Elizabeth Taylor, who used Twitter yesterday to say, quote, she can't be part of the public hoopla, end quote. And she also said he would understand her feelings because she didn't want to share her grief with millions of people. Also absent today, Beyonce, Justin Timberlake, as well as Jackson's ex-wives, Lisa Marie Presley and Debbie Rowe, who said she didn't want to distract from the service. Let's go to Bill Whitaker, who is standing by at Forest Lawn Cemetery in the Hollywood Hills. Bill, tell us what transpired there already this morning.
Good morning, Katie. The Jackson family held its private service here just a short while ago. It was a relatively short service, about an hour, before they headed downtown for the big public tribute at the Staples Center. But here at Forest Lawn was the family's time, away from the spotlight, to say their final quiet farewell. It was before 8 this morning when the funeral cortege left Jackson's parents' home in Encino under the watchful eye of fans and police, making its way to the Hall of Liberty here at Forest Lawn. Last night, a casket believed to be Jackson's was delivered to the hall. An intimate group of family and friends gathered here, among them Michael Jackson's sister LaToya and brother Randy. They were back again today, this time with Jackson's parents, children, and other family and friends for a final private service. Many entertainment luminaries are buried here at this Hollywood Hills final resting place, including Mae West and Betty Davis, Stan Laurel and Sammy Davis, Liberace, Lucille Ball, and just recently Ed McMahon. Now, before Michael Jackson is buried here, his body goes downtown to the big tribute, the big public tribute at the Staples Center. Now, the cortege departed the cemetery about a half hour ago. Limousines, private cars, 37 in all, with a huge police escort going along the freeways here of Los Angeles to the tribute downtown. But now the private service is over, and Michael Jackson once again is delivered to his public. Katie?
And Bill, this of course is all happening under a cloud of some legal troubles and legal wrangling about the Michael Jackson estate as well as custody of his children. Can you explain sort of what's going on there, Bill?
Well, we know that the battle over the children could be a pretty brutal one. We've got Michael Jackson saying that he wants his mother to take care of his children, and now Debbie Rowe, the mother of the older two of the three children, says she might want to take custody, so that will end up in court. We've also got the will that's going to be managed by two of his former business partners. Yesterday in court, the judge took the administration of his estate away from his mother and gave it to these two business partners, and they will now be able to handle his money, which will be even bigger in the future based on the money that will come in from his name, his signature, and his image down the line. Katie?
Right, and I know there's a hearing about his estate bill in August, and the first of the child custody hearings will be happening next Monday, so it should be very interesting to watch. Bill Whitaker at Forest Lawn Cemetery. Bill, thank you so much. Let's go to Ben Tracy now. Ben is here near me on the periphery of the Staples Center with some of the throngs of people who have gathered here to be part of this moment in history. Ben, what's going on there?
Well, that's right, Katie. We're a long city block from the Staples Center, and back here, this is what the police are calling the cold zone. These are all the people that came down here without tickets simply because they wanted to be a part of this event. And some people came from a long ways away, including Vernice over here. Vernice, you came from New York City, is that right?
I came from the Bronx, New York, Brian. I came a long way to see Michael, to say goodbye.
And you told me your ticket cost about $900, so you are a big fan. Why do you want to be here so badly?
Well, you know, I've always been a fan. I've never seen him since 1978, and now here we are in 2009. I've never gone to a concert because it's the crowds, but I had to get down here to say goodbye to him and his family, and, you know, he's just gone too soon. He's an icon, the king of pop. I just had to be here. My family sent me. I'm here on Facebook and everything, on the telephone with my people from New York. People from the Bronx, I love you. Thanks, Mom, for helping me get out here.
Now, it's highly unlikely you're going to be able to see a whole lot of anything. What would make your day?
I would just die if I saw a limo or a glove or just anything. I mean, we were sitting out here early. I've been here since 7 o'clock this morning. I slept on the floor. My friends in Woodland Hills. I leave tomorrow, going back to work.
Dedicated. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully you'll get to see something. Katie, as you can tell, there's a lot of energy out here, a lot of people very excited to simply be a part of this day in history.
But Ben, are they frustrated that
Katie?
they're here, but they can't? Are they frustrated that they're here, but can't necessarily see the service itself?
Yeah, I don't know if frustration's the right word, because I think they expected they weren't going to be able to see a whole lot. The police have been very clear, telling people don't come down here because you're not going to see much. But obviously there are a lot of people who simply want to be here in the general area. For them, that's experience enough.
All right, Ben Tracy. Ben, thanks so much. Jeff Glor, meanwhile, is covering the law enforcement and security aspect of this monumental event. And Jeff, this is obviously presenting a lot of security, safety, and financial challenges to the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, Katie, financial challenges at exactly the wrong time right now. Here's the way this works. AEG, the concert promoter, and the company organizing this service has agreed to pay for everything inside the Staples Center and on Staples Center property. However, everything outside on surrounding streets has to be handled by the city. That means police, fire, sanitation, general city services, barricades, all paid for by a city that is $500 million in debt right now. They're estimating this whole thing will cost between $2 and $4 million. So basically, the city of Los Angeles is spending money on this service that they don't have. And so they've appealed to the Jackson family, also to AEG, the promoter, to try to pick up some of these costs. So far as we know, they have not gotten a response. The city then has gone ahead and set up a website soliciting donations from the public. They're hoping that a lot of little donations will add up to a lot of money. Katie, back to you.
All right, Jeff Glor, thanks very much. Now, watching along with me, our journalist Randy Tabarelli, Randy's written many biographies of celebrities, including Michael Jackson, The Magic and the Madness, and a 10-time Grammy winner, music producer Kenny Babyface Edmonds, who knew Michael Jackson well and collaborated with him on a number of projects throughout his career. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here with us. Nice to see you both.
It's good to be here.
Kenny, you first met Michael Jackson, and you knew him really through his whole life practically, but you first met him when you were in 8th grade. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I actually was from Indiana, and the Jackson 5 came into the city, and I wanted to meet him so bad, so I pretended to be a journalist and called the promoter and said that I was Mr. Clayton. I wanted these kids to interview kids, and I got in there. And the first time I met Michael, we were both 12, 13 years old, and I interviewed him, and at that time he was much shorter. I was towering over him. Somewhere he got taller than me. I don't know how that happened, but it was amazing to meet him way back then.
And you forged a friendship and a working relationship throughout your career. You collaborated on a number of songs with Michael Jackson,
yes,
produced a number of songs. And tell us, you knew him quite well personally. You spent a lot of private time with him. You know, he's such an enigma in many ways, Kenny. How would you describe him?
Michael was a really good guy. I would notice that a lot of people that would meet Michael, there was a certain kind of magic that would happen when you would actually meet him. And even those that may be questionable about him, once you meet him, it goes away. He had this magic quality about him. And he was a very silly guy. He did jokes all the time. he laughed at me all the time. I don't know why exactly, but I walk in the room, he just started laughing. And he said it was that Indiana thing, Indiana.
Because you're from Indiana,
Exactly.
You're one of 6 brothers, so you
Yes.
must have related to him. You're 51 years old.
Yes.
He was 50, sadly,
Yeah.
when he passed away. So, and he was in every way a contemporary, really.
I think Michael, I wouldn't put myself on the same level as Michael. I don't know that anyone can. Michael came into this world as a kid next door that we all saw get on that stage, and miracles happened when he hit that stage. And from that point on, it was an amazing thing.
Let's just go inside the Staples Center because Smokey Robinson is speaking, and then we'll be able to talk some more.
Michael wanted me to be there for his children, and I will be there if they ever need me. I hope today brings closure for all those who loved him. Thank you, Catherine and Joe, for sharing your son with the world and with me. I send my love and condolences to the Jackson family. Diana Ross. Dear Jackson family, it is with great sadness that we learned of the untimely death of Michael Jackson. Michael became close to us after he started visiting and performing in South Africa regularly. We grew fond of him, and he became a close member of our family. We had great admiration for his talent and that he was able to triumph over tragedy on so many occasions in his life. Michael was a giant and a legend in the music industry, and we mourn with the millions of fans worldwide. We also mourn with his family and his friends over the loss of our dear friend. He will be missed, and memories about him cherished for a very long time. My wife and I, our family, our friends, send you our condolences during this time of mourning. Be strong. Nelson Mandela.
Randy, tell us a little bit about the arrangements for this really huge spectacle of a memorial service. Did things run smoothly? Was there a lot of infighting? There seems to have been a fair amount of chaos surrounding the planning of this, which may be expected given his untimely death and the speed at which they had to plan this.
Well, you know, Kenny and I were just talking about the fact that Michael would have loved this. This is the kind of major event that Michael would have wanted. And of course, there's always chaos when you put together something like this very quickly. You know, but I think what we've seen out here is a lot of respect. This has been a very well-behaved crowd. It's a big crowd. I've never seen anything quite like this, maybe since the Victory Tour, you know. And it seems to be very orderly, and I think that this has been very well put together considering the amount of time that they had to orchestrate this.
Tell us a little bit about the comeback tour that he was planning in London. There seems to have been a lot of excitement surrounding that. Was he excited? Did he feel responsible, obligated? Do you know how he was looking toward that event?
Well, you know, that event actually started because Michael really wanted to perform for his children. That was sort of the original idea of that event. You know, Michael said that while he's young enough to be able to do it, and his children are old enough to be able to enjoy it, he wanted to be able to perform for his kids. And then it kind of blew up from there and became a major event, as everything involving Michael Jackson eventually did. And he became very excited about the prospect of going out there and doing what he did so well. And we've seen the footage, the rehearsal footage of Michael right here at the Staples Center when he was rehearsing 2 days before his death. And wow, I mean, Kenny, he looked great.
He looked great.
Looked great. I mean, it really looked like Michael Jackson was on his way, to coming back and being strong, in his field again. So I think it was going to be a very interesting and maybe very good comeback.
And Kenny, you told me earlier this morning that Michael Jackson always wanted to talk about the work, never stopped trying to do his best in whatever enterprise he was involved in.
It had to be the best, and I think sometimes that's why he would put so much money into things, because it couldn't be anything but the best. And so whatever it took, whatever you had to do to make it the best thing. As we said, this event right here, the fact how it's come out and how everyone has come out to support and all the love that's happening, this is kind of the best for him. He would look at this, this is amazing, that's how he would want it. And I'm sure he was preparing for this tour in the same way. He was ready to go. And as we saw, I don't know if you can even call it a comeback, because all he ever had to do was walk on the stage. And once he walks on the stage, then that's it. We just haven't seen him on the stage.
Once he walks on the stage,
he's just back.
That's the comeback.
It's not a comeback. He's just back.
He was. You told me also that you rode with him in a car to a gig once. I guess you wouldn't really call it a gig, would you, Kenny? But to a concert.
Yeah.
And what that was like. Tell us about that.
It was amazing. It was in Nice, France, and he called me over, and I went over and rode in the car with him, with me and my son at the time, who's 13. He will be 13 at this point. And so he was just basically 1 or 2 years old. And we sat in the car and were riding, and all the fans were just banging on the doors, and as it was kind of scary actually. And as we went through the concert. I stayed in the dressing room off to the side. He wouldn't let me leave. He just let me stay. He wanted me to stay there and experience the whole thing of being Michael. And it was an amazing thing. And at that point, I got to see how hard he works. He works hard every bit of the way. He was no slouch as an entertainer at all.
Having said that, before we continue our conversation, I just want to show folks at home watching, we just got this program for the memorial service, which obviously had to be done quickly, but it obviously features many photographs of Michael Jackson that all those in attendance will be receiving. Needless to say, this is going to become quite a collector's item, I'm sure. But, we look at him from his early days on. And Randy and Kenny, I was just curious, Kenny just talked about all the fans. How was he able to deal with this superstardom? And do you think that in many ways contributed to some pretty obvious problems he had later in his life in terms of just all the scrutiny, all the attention, all the stardom?
I remember talking to Michael about that back in the early 1980s when Thriller was becoming the biggest album of all time. And I have to tell you, he really was not prepared for the kind of worldwide attention that he received. Michael just wasn't wired that way. If it had been up to Michael, he would have had a much more private life. He wanted to make great music, and he wanted to be number one. But paradoxically, he didn't want the kind of attention that went with that status. And it was difficult for him. I talked to him many times about that over the years, and he had a tough time adjusting, especially when the tabloids began to really create stories about him that he thought were unfair. That was really hard for him, and I don't think he ever really adjusted to it, no.
What about you, Kenny? I know that you told me he was always talking to you about the music when the two of you would get together. Clearly that's what drove him, his artistry and his desire to perform. He said many times what it was like to be on stage, and I think he did become a different person when he set foot on that stage. But did he confide in you at all about what it was like and trying to maintain? It's one thing to reach superstardom, but then to try to maintain it is really difficult.
It was difficult, but the one thing that was certain is that Michael loved his fans. And so he didn't like the press and how they would jump on him. But in terms of his love for the fans, that's what pushed him. Because when he would walk out on that stage and he'd feel that was the thing that kept him going more than anything. And once you feel that, you know, it's an amazing thing just for me to stand off to the side of the stage and see and feel that love. That was, I think, what ultimately pushed him. And obviously, you know, his kids, that's a whole nother thing. In his family life, that was a whole nother thing. That was precious. That was a world that he wanted no one to tamper with whatsoever.
He was a very loving father. Did you see him with his children?
Only a couple times. And he always kind of kept his family, you know, kept it separate, and because he wanted to protect them more than anything.
Well, you know, he knew what he'd been through as a youngster, you know, with the Jackson 5. I mean, and I was there for the Jackson 5 days, but I was backstage at some of those Jackson 5 shows when we were kids. And it was chaos, and, you know, and Michael had a tough time even as a young... I remember them having to carry Michael on an airplane, kicking and screaming when he was about 12 because he didn't want to fly. You know, I mean, he had a lot of traumatic experiences as a young kid. So he worked very hard to protect his kids from any kind of exposure that they would have bad memories of when they were adults.
Let's go to Mark Phillips because he's covering this event from London, of course, where Michael's series of concerts was scheduled for actually early July. And Mark, tell us are people very cognizant of this memorial service over in London? Are people paying much attention to it?
They're absolutely aware of it. This is, as you say, the place where the comeback of Michael Jackson was due to begin just next week. And so it's a place that feels that it has a connection to him, those 50 concerts that so much has already been said about that were planned, excuse me. We're here right in we're here right in the center of London and in front of what has become one of the many shrines, places of tribute for Michael Jackson. There's one here, there's one around the corner, there's one around the corner on one of London's main squares. People have gathered, in fact, not only all over London, but right around the world in anticipation of this memorial and to pay their respects, as they have been doing, laying flowers, leaving these tributes over the past week. This is not just an LA event and not just an American event. It's very much a worldwide wake, a new WWW, I suppose. And it's one that's being paid attention to right across the planet. It's being carried live. I think it's something like 180 countries, and that doesn't count the internet saturation that it will have as well. There's a prospective audience being predicted in the 300 million range. It's likely to be the biggest memorial service the world, in fact, has ever seen. Katie?
All right, Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips, thanks very much. Meanwhile, Michelle Miller is in Harlem, where there have been many celebrations of Michael Jackson's life. Michelle, what's going on there?
Well, many people here say if they couldn't be in Los Angeles at the memorial service, this is where they wanted to be, in the heart of Harlem, about a block away from the Apollo Theater, where Michael Jackson burst onto the music scene, where less than a week ago his life was celebrated, where thousands gathered. And today, take a look, there are 500 to 600 people, a steady stream of folks who are standing before this Jumbotron, enwrapped, watching what is taking place in Los Angeles. They say that they wanted to share this moment in time with people who understood what they were going through. These are fans far and wide, all ages, all races. They wanted folks to be here with other people who grew up with Michael Jackson. Now, many here wanted to be in Los Angeles, but quite frankly, they were barred from participating in the lottery. New York State, Rhode Island, and Florida barred their residents from participating in that lottery. So they're here, they're sharing one moment at a time, they say they will never forget. Katie?
All right, Michelle Miller. Michelle, thanks so much, and maybe we'll come back to you and you can talk to some of those fans who have gathered while we wait for the memorial service to continue. Oddly enough, Smokey Robinson spoke a few minutes ago. He read a message from Diana Ross, who apparently is not in attendance, and also from Nelson Mandela. And as you can see inside the Staples Center, we're waiting for the rest of the memorial service to begin. And as we wait, let's go to Ben Tracy once more, who is outside the Staples Center, where many, many fans have gathered. They do not have tickets. They do not have a Jumbotron. Tron, but they wanted to be a part of this moment in pop culture history. Ben, tell us, maybe you can talk to a few more people who have gathered here this morning.
Exactly. You know, Katie, early on, the police feared that there could be as many as 1 million people descending on downtown Los Angeles. Then they ratcheted that down to about a couple 100,000. Now they're saying it could be 50,000. When you look back here at the crowd, it looks like a big crowd, but we think there's probably only about 500 people here at this particular barricade, but there are barricades like this all around the perimeter down here. And as you said, these are people who don't have tickets. These are people who simply came here because they wanted to be part of this event to help celebrate Michael Jackson. And let me show you why things seem to be going pretty smoothly down here. You can see there is a significant police presence. We're told 3,200 police officers are deployed in and around the Staples Center. That is a larger police contingent that they had during the '84 Olympics that were held here in Los Angeles. So they're clearly hoping that these crowds will just be here, have fun, trying to participate in the event. But right now, they're not expecting any problems. Katie?
All right, Ben Tracy. Ben, thanks very much. Let's go to Sandra Hughes. She is outside the Neverland Ranch, of course, Michael Jackson's beloved home for a period of time. And Sandra, I know there had been some discussion about possibly burying Michael Jackson at the Neverland Ranch, sort of turning it into a Graceland type location, but that didn't happen, and that was because it was prohibited by law. Is that right?
Well, what there was talk about was actually burying him here, and that's against California law unless a person is cremated. You know, I've talked to several of the fans who are gathered here this morning. In fact, I'm going to just step back a little bit and show you. We've got quite a crowd that is amassing here in front of the gates of Neverland. We've got quite a few vendors who are here as well. They're selling everything from these Michael Jackson t-shirts to hats to buttons, lemonade, water, you name it. There are quite a few entrepreneurs here. But, you know, Katie, the fans that I talked to this morning said they didn't even try to get into that lottery to get a seat down at Staples Center, that they really feel closer to Michael Jackson here at Neverland Ranch. You know, he purchased this ranch when he was 29 years old back in 1988, and he spent millions of dollars to just turn it into this amazing childlike fantasy amusement park. It had circus animals, they had amusement rides, it had 2 trains, one of them a steam engine, an ice cream machine that we're told, Katie, was kept on all the time, just in case children would stop by. He invited children from the town of Los Olivos, right down the road. There's a school across the street. He would invite children from there to come spend a day at Neverland. You know, the name even coming from the fantasy island in Peter Pan, where children never grow up. And many people saying that Michael Jackson was trying to recapture some of his youth here. And, you know, quite frankly, some of the fans that I'm talking to today say they still expect that there's going to be some kind of a ceremony up here in memorial to Michael Jackson. Katie?
All right, Sandra Hughes, thank you so much. Randy Taraborelli, let's talk a little bit about Michael Jackson's estate. He was terribly in debt, and yet his estate is estimated to be at what, $500 million?
Yes, Katie, we're talking $500 million in Michael Jackson's estate. He is said to be about $300 million in debt, which still leaves you know, quite a sizable amount. It's interesting that when Michael Jackson hired the lawyer who is the executor of his present will, John Branca, back in 1980, he was worth $1 million. And so you can imagine, you know, how much money he's accumulated over the years. He was a very shrewd businessman, Michael was. You know, most of that has to do with the ATV catalog, which is the Beatles catalog that we've heard so much about, that Michael is a 50% owner in. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting now to see how the estate plays out, you know, as they try to settle all of the bills that Michael has left behind.
What about what he's likely to make in death? I mean, I read somewhere that Elvis Presley's estate made $53 million last year. I don't know if that's possible, but it's likely to be a huge money-making venture, is it not?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, most icons, when they pass away, such as, you know, when Marilyn Monroe died, she died practically with no money at all, and her estate is worth a lot of money today. And many people have asked me, do you think Michael Jackson is worth more in death than in life? life, you know, and I just don't believe that that's the case. Michael Jackson would have made hundreds of millions of dollars on his present tour if it had continued as they intended it to. I mean, Michael Jackson was in the prime of his life. Don't you agree, Katie?
Yeah.
I mean, he was going to make a lot of money, and he had an amazing future ahead of him. That said, yes, the estate will definitely prosper.
Why do you think he had an amazing future ahead of him? One hopes that is the case, Randy, but clearly he was having a lot of medical issues. We are waiting for the toxicology reports. There was Diprivan apparently found, which is a powerful anesthesia, which is only used during procedures, and when it is extremely carefully monitored.
Yes.
And obviously he seemed to be quite frail. So why are you so confident that some of his best days were still ahead?
You know, because after the trial, Katie, after the trial in Santa Maria, you know, that sort of fire in his belly had been extinguished, and it had been such a demoralizing experience for him. And when he was exonerated, it took him years to sort of get over the traumatic experience of the trial. And I know from my sources inside the family that in the last year he had just sort of come to a point where he was ready to go on and perform and record and do the kinds of things that he's been known to do. Now, as for the drugs and all of that, I mean, I want to wait for the toxicology report to come in before I want to comment on that. I'm hoping, like Jermaine and I talked about this, I mean, I'm hoping that none of that's the case. We'll find out when those reports come in, and that would be very interesting.
How much you mentioned that the trials really were very demoralizing for him. On the other hand, there's still many people in this country, as you well know, Randy, who think that Michael Jackson was involved in inappropriate and illegal behavior.
Well, I sat in that courtroom every single day right behind Michael Jackson, and I listened to the evidence, and I have to say that I wasn't convinced, and that was, my opinion of that situation.
Let's go inside the Staples Center, where I understand the memorial service is about to continue.
They wanted me in there, so this.
As we wait for the memorial service to continue, we're joined by Brian Oxman, the Jackson family attorney, yes, and spokesman, or?
It is great to see you, Katie.
Nice to see you as well.
What a day to be here.
Well, it's both a sad day and I guess a day of celebration in many ways. And we just saw the Jackson brothers, who are the pallbearers for this memorial service, carrying the coffin. How is the family doing?
It is extraordinary. I never thought we would be here. I never thought that this would be how things wind up. But the storm and commotion that was Michael Jackson, what else could it have possibly been?
Let's listen.
My name is Pastor Lucius Smith, and I am proud to call the Jackson family my friends. To millions around the world, Michael Jackson was an idol, a hero, even a king. But first and foremost, this man before us today was our brother, our son, our father, and our friend. Michael Jackson was and always shall be a beloved part of the Jackson family and the family of man. And so today we gather those who know and love Michael best and those who came to know and love him through his good works. We come together in this space where only days ago Michael sang and danced and brought his joy as only he could. We come together and we remember the time. We remember this man by celebrating his life and all of the love that he brought to our own lives for half a century. Our hearts are heavy today because this man, this brother, this son, this father, and this friend is gone far too soon. But as long as we remember our time with him, the truth is, he is never really gone at all. As long as we remember him, he will be there forever to comfort us. In his very beautiful and very human heart, Michael Jackson wanted nothing more than to give love to the world, to share of his singular talent and his soul, and perhaps be loved back in return. Through his words, his music, and his countless good deeds, Michael did so much to try and heal our world. And so for the Jackson family, and for all who grieve his loss everywhere in our world, may this moment of remembrance, a moment of healing, a moment of music, and a moment of love bring comfort to those who loved our friend. God bless you.
never will say goodbye. No, 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 no. Even through the pain and heartache, we will be right there. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ooh, gonna be right there. Gonna be right there. Gonna be right there. Thank you, Jesus. We miss you.
Mariah Carey and her backup singer Trey Lorenz singing I'll Be There, one of Michael Jackson's and the Jackson 5's biggest hit when they had that incredible slew of #1 songs from Stop the Love You Save, I Want You Back, ABC, and I'll Be There.
Yeah, Berry Gordy told them, I guarantee you, you will have 4 #1 records, and they did.
Michael, being inspired and loving Michael from a distance. All of you. Somehow when Michael Jackson sang and when he danced, we never felt distant. We felt like he was right there, right for us. You believed in Michael and he believed in you. He made you believe in yourself. I loved him all my life. One of the first records my brother and I ever bought was Dancing Machine. And I'll never forget the two of us trying to like get the robot going, trying to be like the Jackson 5. Thank you. Thank you. Michael was the biggest star on earth. He let me know that as an African American, you could travel the world. There was a world outside of America, other people. All you people who came here to pay respect to someone who you felt was one of you, a human being, first. This morning I spoke with perhaps one of our greatest poets, Maya Angelou, and I'm so honored that she asked me to share some words that she wrote for Michael. We Had Him, by Dr. Maya Angelou. Beloveds, now we know that we know nothing. Now that our bright and shining star can slip away from our fingertips like a puff of summer wind. Without notice, our dear love can escape our doting embrace, sing our songs among the stars, and walk our dances across the face of the moon. In the instant we learn that Michael is gone, we know nothing. No clocks can tell our time, and no oceans can rush our tides. With the abrupt absence of our treasure, though we are many, each of us is achingly alone, piercingly alone. Only when we confess our confusion can we remember that he was a gift to us, and we did have him. He came to us from the Creator, trailing creativity in abundance. Despite the anguish of life, he was sheathed in mother love and family love and survived, and did not more than that. He thrived with passion and compassion, humor and style. We had him. Whether we knew who he was or did not know, he was ours and we were his. We had him, beautiful, delighting our eyes. He raked his hat slant over his brow and took a pose on his toes for all of us. and we laughed and stomped our feet for him. We were enchanted with his passion because he held nothing. He gave us all he had been given. Today, in Tokyo, beneath the Eiffel Tower, in Ghana's Black Star Square, in Johannesburg and Pittsburgh, in Birmingham, Alabama, and Birmingham, England, we are missing Michael Jackson. But we do know we had him, and we are the world. Thank you.
Queen Latifah really expressing the views of so many people who grew up listening to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Father, help your children.
I know, Aaron.
And don't let them fall by the side of the road. Oh, and teach them to love one another, that heaven might find a place in their hearts. 'Cause Jesus is love. He won't let you down. And I know He's mine. He's mine, He's mine, He's mine forever. Oh, in my heart. Come on now. Got to walk on through temptation. 'Cause His love and His wisdom will be our helping hand. And I know the truth, and His words will be our salvation. Lift up our hearts to be thankful and glad. 'Cause Jesus is love. Yeah, yeah. He won't let you down. And I know, oh, yeah, He's mine. He's mine, He's mine, He's mine, oh mine, forever. I'm gonna follow that star wherever it leads me. I don't mind, Lord. I hope you don't mind. I wanna walk with you, talk with you, do all the things you want me to do. Oh, who will pick you up? Oh, when you fall. Who will stand beside you? Who will love us all? Yeah. Jesus.
And that was, of course, Lionel Richie. And Randy, Lionel Richie, when he was part of the Commodores, had a very close relationship with the Jackson 5.
That's right. The Commodores opened for the Jackson 5 in their concert tour, and Kenny just told me he actually saw that show, the Commodores and the Jackson 5 together.
And did they maintain a friendship throughout their lives?
Well, of course, and Lionel Richie collaborated with Michael Jackson on We Are the World, and that was a huge record that generated a lot of money.
He was driven by his hunger to learn, to constantly top himself, to be the best. He was the consummate student. He studied the greats and became greater. He raised the bar and then broke the bar. His talent and creativity thrust him and entertainment into another stratosphere. The Motown family mourns the death of our friend and brother, Michael Jackson, who was like a son to me. Our deep condolences go out to all his family, his parents, Joe and Catherine, his beautiful children, his sisters and brothers, and his nieces and nephews. Michael Jackson was 10 years old when he and his brothers, Jackie, Jermaine, Tito, and Marlon, auditioned for me at Motown. In Detroit that July day in 1968, and blew us all away. The Jackson 5 were just amazing, and Little Michael's performance was way beyond his years. This little kid had an incredible knowingness about him. He sang with such feeling and inspiration. Michael had a quality that I couldn't completely understand, but we all knew he was special. Aside from singing and dancing like James Brown and Jackie Wilson, he sung a Smokey Robinson song called Who's Loving You? He sang it with the sadness and passion of a man who had been living the blues and heartbreak his whole life. And as great as Smokey sang it, I thought Michael was better. You know. I went to Smokey and I said, hey man, I think he got you on that one. Smokey said, me too. That was Motown. Motown was built on love and competition, and sometimes the competition got in the way of the love, but the love always won out. We competed on everything. In California, we had a baseball game every week, the Jacksons versus the Gordys. Unfortunately for us, Tito and Jackie were big home run hitters. They would knock the ball out of the park. But then, so was my son, Barry. And I'm not going to tell you who won most of the games, but I will tell you that the Gordys cried a lot. And even though Little Michael was the catcher for the Jacksons and missed a lot of balls, we still cried a lot. But we swam and we joked and we played games. And when Michael performed his songs, you could feel the happiness in his soul, because that's what he loved to do. Michael inspired me so much that for days I walked around humming a bright little happy tune with him in mind. Oh, baby, da da dee da da, da 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 da. Then I put a group together and we came up with 4 hit records for them. I Want You Back, ABC, the love you save, and I'll be there. The Jackson 5 was the only group in history to have their first 4 records go to #1. In 1983, the brothers reunited and returned to do Motown 25th anniversary show. After a high-powered, dazzling medley of their songs, Michael took the stage alone and made pop history. From the first beat of Billie Jean and the toss of that hat, I was mesmerized. But when he did his iconic moonwalk, I was shocked. It was magic. Michael Jackson went into orbit and never came down. Though it ended way too soon, Michael's life was beautiful. Sure, there were some sad times and maybe some questionable decisions on his part, but Michael Jackson accomplished everything he dreamed of. At 10 years old, he had passion. He had passion to be the greatest entertainer in the world, and he was willing to work as hard to do whatever it took to become what he indeed became, the undisputed king of pop, the world over. What kid wouldn't give his right arm to fulfill his wildest childhood dreams? Michael loved it all, every moment on stage, every moment in rehearsal. Michael loved creating what had never been done before. He loved everything and everybody, especially his fans. I must say, though, that he did have 2 personalities. Off stage, he was shy, soft-spoken, and childlike. But when he took the stage in front of his screaming fans, he turned into another person. A master, a take-no-prisoners showman. It was like kill or be killed. I mean, Michael was awesome. Totally in charge. In fact, the more I think and talk about Michael Jackson, I feel the king of pop is not big enough for him. I think he is simply the greatest entertainer that ever lived.
Very moving speech by Berry Gordy saying that Michael was like a son to him and that, quote, this little kid had an incredible knowingness about him. But he almost turned down the Jackson 5, didn't he?
Well, he had little Stevie Wonder, and he said that's enough for one company. And yeah, he almost turned it down until we saw a videotape of Michael and the boys performing, and then he knew there was no way to turn that down.
And it was Suzanne DePass that definitely made him say, stop, you better check these guys out.
She was a Motown powerhouse, and she was very instrumental in the career.
Yeah, very instrumental.
She did the costumes and worked with them with the choreograph.
Thank you for the joy. Thank you for the love. You will live in my heart forever. I love you.
Berry Gordy told me, Randy and Kenny, that they had a real code of conduct for Motown artists. which I think was helpful to Michael when he was young and maybe hurtful when he left Motown. Let's listen to the musical.
What Michael Jackson has achieved.
Michael Jackson. Best-selling American artist.
This Video Pioneer Award is given to Michael Jackson.
Again, I say thank you. Thanks to God. In the past, I've gone from where is he to here he is again. I love you, Michael. But I must confess, it feels good to be thought of as a person, not as a personality.
Fame, fortune, they're all illusions.
Who's bad? Who's bad? Who's bad?
We've been watching a video tribute to Michael Jackson, which was really quite poignant to see him from a young boy to the artist he became shortly before his death. We were saying earlier that as a boy, he acted more like a man, and as a man, he acted more like a boy, and was always really trying to recapture the childhood he never had, wasn't he, Kenny?
Yeah, pretty much.
As we can see, Stevie Wonder is coming up to the stage. They were very close, weren't they, Randy?
Oh, yes, very close.
But as much as I can say that and mean it, I do know that God is good. And I do know that as much as we may feel, and we do, that we need Michael here with us, God must have needed him far more. Michael, I love you, and I've told you that many times, so I'm at peace. I'm at peace with that. I as well told you that I never ever imagined that I would write a song that would be sent to Quincy Jones and you would hear it, and my sister Renee would get me the cassette and I'd hear it back and be amazed that you did this song, and so incredibly so, you did this song. we can't help but love you forever, Michael. love you, Michael. God bless you.
Stevie Wonder performing I'd Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer and They Won't Go When I Go, two very appropriate songs. As you can see, the Jackson brothers are all wearing one white glove as a special tribute to their brother. The Jackson 5, by the way, sang background vocals for Stevie Wonder and You Haven't Done Nothing Yet in the early 70s, and they've been close friends ever since.
We all know that nobody ever gave on stage like Michael Jackson. But Michael was also a true humanitarian who gave just as much off stage as he did on the stage. Michael and his family came from humble roots, and Michael always cared very deeply for those in need. And beyond all of his records that he broke as a recording artist, Michael even made the Guinness Book of World Records for most charities supported by a pop star. Because he gave so much to do so many of us for so long, Michael Jackson will be with us forever.
I met Jackie Jackson about 30 years ago, and he was a season ticket holder for the Lakers, as well as his brother Marlon. Jackie and I became friends, and he began to invite me out to their home. Then I got to know the brothers and the sisters and his incredible mother and father. We loved to play with firecrackers and just have fun. And Barry, just like you lost to the Jacksons in softball, so did I. And we had some incredible times together. Then Jackie invited me to go on tour with the brothers. And then I got to see the genius of Michael Jackson. He was so incredible. He always had command of not only the band, his brothers, but also the audience. I truly believe that Michael made me a better point guard and basketball player as I watched him be so great and be the greatest entertainer ever. From there, Michael called me one day and said, I want to talk to you about being in a video, Remember the Time. But I had to double check with Jackie to make sure it was really Michael, because I was scared to death to go over to his house because this was my idol. He was everything to me. So I went over to his house to have dinner. The chef came out and said, what would you like? I said, some grilled chicken. So as we began to talk about the video and what he wanted me to do, the chef bought me out the grilled chicken, but he bought Michael out a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I went crazy like, wait a minute, Michael, you eat Kentucky Fried Chicken? That made my day. That was the greatest moment of my life. We had such a good time sitting on the floor, eating that bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I want to say this. This is a celebration of his life, of his legacy. I want to thank Michael for opening up so many doors for African Americans to be on daytime shows, late night shows. He allowed Kobe and I to have our jerseys in people's homes across the world because he was already there. And he opened all those doors for us. His 3 children will have the most incredible grandmother that God has put on this earth to take care of them. Michael's 3 children will have incredible uncles and aunts to take care of them as well. And they will have plenty of cousins to play with. So may God continue to bless this incredible family. We say that we're praying for you, remain strong. We want to thank the city of Los Angeles for putting this on, AEG for putting it on as well. And may God continue to bless you, Michael.
Kobe Bryant and Michael Jackson, and we're told Michael used to show Kobe Bryant weepy movies like An Affair to Remember together, which paints quite a picture. And of course, Magic Johnson talking about going to his house and being surprised he was eating KFC.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson also saying thank you to Michael Jackson for opening so many doors for African Americans.
And I was inside of thee. You were my friend. Carry me like you were my brother. Love me like a mother. Will you be there? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Lord. Everyone's taking control of me. Seems like the world got rolled for me. I'm so confused. Will you show to me? You'll be there for me and care enough to bear me. Hold me. Show me something and boldly. Yeah. Carry me there. Yeah. Lead me. Love me and feed me. Free me. Kiss me and free me. Free me. I will feel blessed. Only you know. Carry me boldly. Carry me slowly. Carry me there. Save me. Save me. Heal me and bathe me. Sometimes I get lonely. You save me. Yeah. I will be there. Lift me. Lift me up. Lift me up slowly. Lift me up high. Carry me boldly. Lift me up some. Show me you care. Will you be there? Hold me. Hold me. Lay your hand slowly. Hold me. Softly and boldly. Hold me. Carry me there. Lead me. Lead me. Love me and feed me. Love me and feed me. Kiss me and free me. I will feel
In our darkest hour, in my deepest despair, will you still care? Will you be there? In my trials and my tribulations, through our doubts and frustrations, in my violence, in my turbulence, through my fear and my confessions, in my anguish and my pains, through my joy and my sorrow, in the promise of another tomorrow. I'll never let you part, for you're always
in my heart.
All over the world today, people are gathered in love vigils to celebrate the life of a man that taught the world how to love. People may be wondering why there's such an emotional outburst, but you would have to understand the journey of Michael to understand what he meant to all of us. For these that sit here as the Jackson family, a mother and father with 9 children that rose from a working class family in Gary, Indiana. They had nothing but a dream. No one believed in those days that these kind of dreams could come true. But they kept on believing, and Michael never let the world turn him around from his dreams. I first met Michael around 1970, Black Expo, Chicago, Illinois, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who stood by this family till now. And from that day as a cute kid to this moment, he never gave up dreaming. It was that dream that changed culture all over the world. When Michael started, it was a different world. But because Michael kept going, because he didn't accept limitations, because he refused to let people decide his boundaries, he opened up the whole world. In the music world, he put on one glove, pulled his pants up, and broke down the color curtain, where now our videos are shown and magazines put us on the cover. It was Michael Jackson that brought blacks and whites and Asians and Latinos together. It was Michael Jackson that made us sing "We Are the World" and feed the hungry long before Live Aid. Because Michael Jackson kept going, he created a comfort level where people that felt they were separate became interconnected with his music. And it was that comfort level that kids from Japan and Ghana and France and Iowa and Pennsylvania got comfortable enough with each other to later it wasn't strange to us to watch Oprah on television. It wasn't strange to watch Tiger Woods golf. Those young kids grew up from being teenage, comfortable fans of Michael to being 40 years old and being comfortable to vote for a person of color to be the president of the United States of America. Michael did that. Michael made us love each other. Michael taught us to stand with each other. There are those that like to dig around mess, but millions around the world, we're going to uphold his message. It's not about mess, it's about his love message. As you climb up steep mountains, sometimes you scar your knee, sometimes you break your skin, but don't focus on the scars, focus on the journey. Michael beat him. Michael rose to the top. He outsang his cynics. He outdanced his doubters. He outperformed the pessimists. Every time he got knocked down, he got back up. Every time you counted him out, he came back in. Michael never stopped. Michael never stopped. Michael never stopped. I want to say to Mrs. Jackson and Joe Jackson, his sisters and brothers, we thank you for giving us someone that taught us love, someone that taught us hope. We want to thank you because we know it was your dream too. And we know that your heart is broken. I know you have some comfort from the letter from the President of the United States and Nelson Mandela, but this was your child. This was your brother. This was your cousin. Nothing will fill your heart's loss. But I hope the love that people are showing will make you know he didn't live in vain. And I want his 3 children to know, wasn't nothing strange about your daddy. It was strange what your daddy had to deal with, but he dealt with it. He dealt with it anyway. He dealt with it for us. So some came today, Mrs. Jackson, to say goodbye to Michael. I came to say thank you. Thank you because you never stopped. Thank you because you never gave up. Thank you because you never gave out. Thank you because you tore down our divisions. Thank you because you eradicated barriers. Thank you because you gave us hope. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael.
Reverend Al Sharpton, who became a very good friend with Michael later in his life. And Kenny, you were telling me he took Michael to see James Brown's body?
Yes, when he passed away. And that was something that Michael, obviously James Brown was Michael's icon. And so that's what got Michael started. So that was a very special thing for Michael to be able to be a part of that. And Al Sharpton, they became friends.
They became friends. And when Michael had problems with Sony, Al Sharpton had a press conference to try to help Michael air his grievances with his record company.
We're waiting for this memorial center ceremony at the Staples Center to continue. Brian Oxman told us earlier that Randy Jackson was really taking the lead in the funeral arrangements because it was slightly chaotic, but over the weekend he is the go-to guy. Let's listen to John Mayer, who's now performing. John Mayer playing a primarily instrumental version of Human Nature from the 1983 Thriller album, the greatest selling album of all time.
Yes.
Which really catapulted Michael Jackson into solo superstardom, didn't it?
No doubt, into the stratosphere at that point.
Although Off the Wall also was enormously successful prior to that.
It was huge, but Michael thought it should have been bigger, and then thus Thriller.
And he was so driven to repeat the success of Thriller after that, and was always disappointed when, say, Bad didn't do as well as Thriller, despite the fact it sold, 25 million copies worldwide.
He always pushed himself to better himself, to be a little bit better, be the best.
I think approaching this microphone is Brooke Shields.
Michael was one of a kind. Thinking back to when we met and the many times that we spent together, and whenever we were out together and there would be a picture taken, there would be a caption of some kind, and the caption usually said something like an odd couple or an unlikely pair. But to us, it was the most natural and easiest of friendships. I was 13 when we met, and from that day on, our friendship grew. Michael always knew that he could count on me to support him or be his date, and that we would have fun no matter where we were. We had a bond. And maybe it was because we both understood what it was like to be in the spotlight from a very, very young age. I used to tease him and I'd say, you know, I started when I was 11 months old. You're a slacker. You were what, 5? Both of us needed to be adults very early. But when we were together, we were two little kids having fun. We never collaborated together. We never performed together or danced on the same stage, although he did try in vain one night to unsuccessfully teach me the moonwalk. And he just basically just shook his head and crossed his arms at my attempt. We never filmed a video or recorded a song, but what we did do was laugh. It was always a competition to see who could make the other one laugh more or be sillier. Michael loved to laugh. His heart would just burst out of him when he was laughing. He adored it when I did silly imitations or told him stories about my life. MJ's laugh was the sweetest and purest laugh of anyone's I had ever known. His sense of humor was delightful, and he was very mischievous. I remember it was the night before Elizabeth Taylor's wedding, and he had called me prior and asked if I would join him. He didn't want to be alone for all the festivities. And it was the night before the big day, and Michael and I tried to sneak in to get the first peek of the dress. and we were just giggling like crazy. And we almost passed out in hysterics when we realized that Elizabeth was actually asleep in the bed. We thought she was in an entirely different room. And we had to laugh and sneak out. Then at the point of the wedding, when there was the first dance, basically we had to joke that we were the mother and father of the bride. Yes, it may have seemed very odd to the outside, but we made it fun and we made it real. When he started wearing the glove, I was like, what's up with the glove? I was like, look, if you're gonna hold my hand, it better be the non-gloved one because sequins really hurt me. He would dig in. He'd just shake his head and he would just smile. He loved to be teased. Seeing him smile made you feel like everything was going to be all right. To the outside world, Michael was a genius with unchallenged ability. To the people who were lucky enough to know him personally, he was caring and funny, honest, pure, non-jaded, and he was a lover of life. He cared so deeply for his family and his friends and his fans. He was often referred to as the king, but the Michael that I knew always reminded me more of the Little Prince. Thinking of him now, I'd like to share a passage from the book. What moves me so deeply about this sleeping prince is his loyalty to a flower. The image of a rose shining within him like the flame within a lamp, even when he's asleep. And I realized he was even more fragile than I had thought. Lamps must be protected. A gust of wind can blow them out. Michael's sensitivity was even more extraordinary than his talent. And his true truth resided in his heart. As the Little Prince also said, eyes are blind. You have to look with the heart. What's most important is invisible. Michael saw everything with his heart. To his family, his brothers and sisters, Catherine, Joe, and to his children, Prince, Paris, Blanket, my prayers are with you. Michael's favorite song was not one of the countless masterpieces that he gave us, but it was a song that Charlie Chaplin wrote for the movie Modern Times. It's called Smile. And there's a line in the song that says, smile though your heart is aching. Today, although our hearts are aching, we need to look up where he is undoubtedly perched in a crescent moon, and we need to smile.
Someone who knows Michael's experience as a young performer very well, Brooke Shields, who has been famous since she was 11 months old doing commercials, and obviously felt a kindred spirit.
Yeah, she really did paint a picture of Michael that's so true.
Saying that he had the sweetest and purest laugh of anyone I've ever known, and really a very intimate portrayal of Michael Jackson.
That was beautiful, that really was.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile with your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just light up your face with sadness, hide every trace of gladness all through the years. We'll be ever so near. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use in crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Though your heart is aching, smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use in crying? You'll find that life still worthwhile if you just smile.
Big brother Jermaine singing Michael Jackson's favorite song from the 1936 movie Modern Times,
Yes.
Smile, and a song that Michael himself recorded, Randy.
Yes, he did on the History album in the early 1990s. It's a great album and a great song. What a performance by Jermaine.
Jermaine was great. It was beautiful.
It's just amazing. That had to be so difficult for him.
Yeah.
First, I must say to Mrs. Katherine Jackson, Mr. Joseph Jackson, the children of Michael Jackson, to Michael Jackson's brothers and sisters and the entire Jackson family, our prayers and condolences are constantly with you. My father once said that in life, one must discover what their calling is And when they do, they must do their jobs so well that the living, the dead, or the unborn could do them no better. He constantly challenged us to become our best by stating that if you cannot be a pine on the top of the hill, why, just be a shrub in the valley, but be the best little shrub on the side of the road. Be a bush if you cannot be a tree. If you cannot be the highway, just be a trail. If you cannot be the sun, just be a star, for it isn't by size that you win or you fail. You've got to be the best of what you are. Michael Jackson was truly the best of what he was. And finally, Martin Luther King Jr. said that in life, if it falls ever your lot to be a street sweeper, you must sweep streets so well. In fact, you must sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets, he said, like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets like Raphael painted pictures. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of the heavens and earth would have to pause and say, here lived the great street sweeper that did his job well. On June 25th, because he was the best, I believe heaven and earth did pause indeed to say of Michael Joseph Jackson, here lived a great entertainer who did his job well.
To the Jackson family, being a part of a world-renowned family who has also experienced a sudden death on more than one occasion, my prayer is that no one and nothing, public or private, fact or fiction, true or rumored, will separate you from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it is only God's love that will anchor you, sustain you, and move you to a higher ground, far above the noise of life. There, you will find the peace, comfort, and joy to move forward to advance Michael's legacy. And for all of us, it is apparent that, like our father and mother, Martin and Coretta King, Michael's life and work was inspired by the love of God. Throughout the ages, few are chosen from amongst us to use their gifts and talents to demonstrate God's love in an effort to bring the world together in true sister and brotherhood. Michael was such a one. He epitomized the words of our Father that an individual hasn't started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. Michael was always concerned with others, with humanity. And I want the world to know that despite being embroiled in accusations and persecution, as a humanitarian, he thought it not robbery to concern himself with this world, with one of this world's other greatest humanitarians, our mother, during her illness just 3 months before her death. In October 2005, I was with Mom when Michael called her all the way from the Middle East. And although she couldn't speak because of a debilitating stroke, she listened as he said to her that he had been praying on his knees every day for her. That to him, she was America's true royalty. And he wanted her to know if music was being played in her room because of its healing effect. My only wish is that he could have seen the glow on her face. If faces could smile, as we know they do, that day, Michael Jackson made our mother's face smile in spite of her condition. What an unforgettable moment. He was such a thoughtful and selfless man, full of the unconditional love of God and good works that touched and changed lives. He was indeed a shining light. Like our father Martin, and in remembrance of Michael, may we all be inspired to go and let our lights shine. Rest in peace, our brother Michael.
We've been listening to Bernice King and Martin Luther King III talking about Michael Jackson, and Magic Johnson talked about this as well, Kenny, but he really did open tremendous doors for African Americans, didn't he?
Of course, from the get-go. We were all excited just to see this family become so famous. They were like the Beatles to us.
I'm Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and I hail from Houston, Texas. But I come to you on behalf of the many members of the United States House of Representatives. I come to you on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus, Chairwoman Barbara Lee, a Californian. And I come to you as every man and every woman, for I cannot write music or dance or sing. But I do know an American story. And to Mr. and Mrs. Jackson and this wonderful family of brothers and sisters and cousins, to Michael Joseph and to Catherine Paris and to Prince, all of these wonderful, beautiful symbols of America. And I can tell you as a member of the United States Congress, we understand the Constitution, we understand laws, and we know that people are innocent until proven otherwise. That is what the Constitution stands for. So I mourn today. I come to thank you. For many people don't understand the hearts of entertainers. They don't know how big their hearts are. They don't know how they heal the world on behalf of America. When we're at war, our icons like Michael sing about healing the world. And so he called us into public service. It did not matter whether we were black or white. He even told us to beat the violence, and look at yourself in the mirror, because it meant that if you were going to make a difference, look at the man or woman in the mirror. I come to you today to say thank you. Some of you come from all faiths, and we respect that here in America. But there's a story whose theme is so symbolic of this young and beautiful man. I love the story of the Good Samaritan because it talks about those who walk by the diminished, the devastated, and the poor. This was a broken and beaten man laying along a road. No one stopped, but someone called the Samaritan. It could be in any faith. It's all about charity and love. And I call Michael Jackson the Good Samaritan. I call him Michael Jackson, who cared and loved for the world. It bothered me. I grew up with him, as all of us, and so many did. And so what an honor and a privilege to see him up close when he came to the United States Congress in my office and looked some 15 African ambassadors, representatives of heads of state, sitting in an office listening to Michael Jackson talk about caring and fighting HIV/AIDS. They looked at him, he had a twinkle, they listened, he listened. What a miraculous experience to be able to listen and see Michael in action. You know, there were words cast about, but I wonder if anybody was on his shoulder when he walked into Walter Reed Hospital and he walked along the aisles and the rows in the hospital rooms. This was in the midst of the Iraq War. Doctors stopped and nurses stopped, and individual soldiers who had lost limbs stopped and were in essence moved and touched, as Michael was, by his desire to come and thank them for their sacrifice. So don't tell me what an American story is all about. It is the salt of the earth. When this family took the talent that God had given them and made it into a miraculous and wonderful story for America. I come today for you to recognize that the flag flies, and the people who have spoken to the people's house. They recognize and they speak, and those of us who serve in elected office, we respond to the people. Michael fought for the tolerance of all people. In fact, I am reminded, although I speak in the tongues of all faith, that Michael fought the good fight. He was someone who understood, and I hope Mr. and Mrs. Jackson and the family will know, the Lord is our shepherd, and we shall not want. Michael Jackson, you've got to know his story, and it has not been told by all of what you have heard. He was someone who understood. If he was burned, he built a burn unit. If a hospital needed beds, he built those beds. If they needed money for developing countries, Michael gave. If he was in Namibia, he went to orphanages. Michael never stopped giving, and he touched those whose lives could be reconstructed because the king, yes, the king stopped and said, I care about you. That is why on the House floor on June 25th, 2009, the Congressional Black Caucus and members of the House of Representatives stopped, and had a moment of silence for this wonderful legend and icon. And so to the family, let me simply come as someone that wishes she was long lost, Sheila Jackson Lee, but I'll keep looking and seeing, but coming to say to you that America appreciates and thanks you for Michael Jackson's life. For that reason, we have introduced into the House of Representatives this Resolution 600 that will be debated on the floor of the House that claims Michael Jackson as an American legend and musical icon, a world humanitarian, someone who will be honored forever and forever and forever and forever and forever. We are the world, and we are better because Michael Joseph Jackson lived. On behalf of myself and the people who have spoken, Michael Jackson, I salute you.
Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas talking about Michael and how charitable he's been during the course of his life. And in fact, his estate, Randy and Kenny's 40% to his children, 40% to his mother, Catherine, and 20% to charity.
To charity, which is quite a lot. And that's in perpetuity, so that's a lot of money. I'd very much like Michael to do that. It's amazing.
He was very interested in giving back, wasn't he, Kenny?
Always. And, I mean, a lot of the songs that were written were giving back. You know, from the song We Are the World, or To Heal the World. He always thought of the world.
We love you, Michael.
You mean so much to us, especially me. Like a comet blazing across the evening sky, gone too soon. Like a rainbow fading in a twinkling eye, gone too soon. Shiny and sparkling and spinning right here one day, gone one night. Like the loss of sunlight on a cloudy afternoon, gone too soon. Like a castle built upon a sandy beach, gone too soon. Like a perfect flower that is just beyond your reach, gone too soon. Born to amuse, to inspire, to delight, here one day, gone one night. Like the sunset dying from the rising moon, gone too soon. Gone too soon.
Usher singing a song that Michael Jackson wrote for Ryan White, who, of course, everyone followed Ryan White's story. He had,
Too soon. What an
he had
appropriate
AIDS
song.
and died in 1990 at the age of 18. And their friendship was a very powerful and strong one.
Yes, it was. It was very strong. And what an appropriate song and a beautiful performance by Usher.
It has to be really hard to stand up there and perform and to be that close to Michael. It's got to be so rough.
And to see the family and his children, and also to know that millions of people all over the world are watching this and, you know, grieving with you. Usher is just one example of Michael Jackson's extraordinary musical influence on
So many people, so many artists today. Usher, Justin Timberlake, to all the boy bands that ever happened.
Don't you know
Who's Loving You, the Smokey Robinson song that Berry Gordy was referring to. Michael covered it, and Berry Gordy called Smokey and said, I think he's got you beat.
I think so.
And Smokey said, you're right.
I wrote that song. I thought I sang it. I wrote that song back in, and a few years later, here comes this little kid. He's 10 years old. And Barry had this gathering at his house. He said, come on, I want you to see somebody very special. So I go over there, and these 5 young guys are there. And they sang and danced up a storm. A couple weeks later, they recorded my song. And I heard it. I thought to myself, now they have pulled a fast one on us, because this boy cannot possibly be 10 years old. This song is about somebody who had somebody who loved them, but they treated them bad. They treated them so bad till they lost them. And now they are paying the price of wanting somebody back that they treated bad and lost. How could he possibly know these things? I quickly went over to him because I wanted to see his birth certificate. I did not believe that someone that young could have that much feeling and soul and know. He had a lot of know. He had to know something to sing that song like that. It was wonderful, though. As a songwriter, man, that's a dream come true, to have somebody sing one of your songs like that. And I myself, I never thought I would be here on today. It's my little brother over there. And you just don't think that you're going to see, or you'll live to see him gone. But he will never really be gone. He is going to live forever and ever and ever and ever. He has made an enormous impact on all of our lives, all over the world. I mean, I have young kids coming up to me now, you know, because when I do concerts, I sing Who's Loving You in the concerts. And young kids who are at the concerts come up to me and say, hey, you're singing Michael Jackson's song, huh? But he will live on forever. I am a firm believer in blessings. And I have had so many, many blessings in my life. One of my greatest blessings was I got a chance to know the Jackson family and to know Michael and to see him. I'm glad I live in an era when I got a chance to see what everybody's been coming up here saying, the greatest entertainer of all times. I'm glad that I live in this era. I believe so much in God. I believe so much that this is not it. We have life after this is done. So my brother is in a place now where he is most certainly going to live forever in the hereafter. So he's going to live forever twice, because he's going to live forever right here, because the world will never, ever forget Michael Jackson. I love you, my brother. I celebrate your life. I am proud that I had the chance to know you. God bless you. I know he is.
Smokey Robinson, who spoke at the start of this memorial service. You know, Randy, Elizabeth Taylor and Diana Ross are not here.
This would have been so hard for them. There's just no doubt about it. They were two of the closest people in his life. Diana Ross introduced me to Michael Jackson, actually, you know, and she was so close to Michael. Michael actually lived with Diana Ross when he first moved to Los Angeles, so she was a mother figure to him as well. Elizabeth Taylor and Michael had a very close relationship. It would have been very difficult for the two of them to be here.
That was Shaheen Jarfagoli. He is a contestant on Britain's Got Talent and apparently sang that song.
I just want to thank him so much for blessing me and every single individual on this earth with his amazing music. And just thank you very much. I love you, Michael Jackson.
My name is Kenny Ortega. Thank you. And I was Michael's partner in the creating and directing of many of his tours, including This Is It. And Shaheem was invited by Michael to join him in London for the show. So I just wanted to introduce him to everybody and to say thank you for coming all the way out here to join us today, Shaheem. We were here. We were right here a little less than a week ago, and Michael was with us, and the band, and Michael Bearden, and the singers, and the dancers, and our choreographer, Travis Payne, and our designers, and our crew. We were all here, and we were a family, and this was our house. So when the Jackson family and Randy Phillips asked Ken Ehrlich and I to help put together this memorial, we knew we had to do it here. We knew we had to invite the world to join us here, Michael's house. We were immediately surrounded by countless family, artists, and friends and dear hearts who unconditionally made this day possible. As we came together as a team, we knew we had to celebrate Michael's life through his music as well as commemorate his passing. Both Ken and I worked with Michael over the years, and Michael and I were here in the final stages of mounting what we all knew and we all saw, I promise you, was his triumphant return to the world. It was also, I think, his greatest personal work. We did it all right here in this place, the Staples. So before we conclude today's memorial, we wanted to present a performance from the London This Is It concerts. The fans have been asking for it. This was one of Michael's very, very favorite moments in the show, always. He created this and brought it to life. It is a living testament to his ability to be timeless and timely, musical and magical. This was for him, his living legacy, his care, his heart, his concern about our planet, about the human condition. Michael Jackson will live in our hearts for always, heal the world, make this a better place for our children, for our children's children. Michael, we love you more. Join us.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must stand together as one.
There are people dying. It's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all.
We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change, make a change.
We are all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day, just you and me.
When you're down and out and there's no hope at all, well, if you just believe, there's no way you can fall.
Let's realize that a change will only come
When we stand together as one.
We are the world,
We are the children.
we are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a brighter day, just you and me. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a brighter day, just you and me. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a brighter day, just
poignant scene up there on stage with Lionel Richie and Smokey Robinson, Jennifer Hudson, and of course the Jackson family, Michael Jackson's children, singing We Are the World, that raised so much money for people in Africa back in 1985. I can't think of a more appropriate way to end this service.
Really, Michael was so proud of that song, and he would have loved that so much.
And of course, some of the featured singers were to have been a part of his This Is It tour.
Yes.
That was scheduled for London, tickets selling out in 4 hours.
Amazing, amazing response.
Your heart, and I know that it is love, and this place can be much brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you feel there's no hurt or sorrow. There are ways to get there if you cared enough for the living. Make a little space. Make a better place. Heal the world. Make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Let our spirits never die. In my heart, I feel you are all my brothers. Create a world, no fear. Together we'll cry happy tears. See the nations turn their swords into plowshares. We can really gather if you cared enough for the living. Make a little space. Make a better place. Heal the world. Make it a
beautiful rendition of Heal the World, which Michael wrote in the early 1990s.
Yes, yes.
He would have been so proud of that.
Yeah, it's a great song.
That was great.
And again, with very much the same message as We Are the World. I think he really found it important to keep reminding people of that.
Well, Michael was very serious about the charities in which he was involved and the charities that he started, and the Heal the World Foundation was very important to him. And, he raised a lot of money for humanitarian causes. I think people tend to forget that.
What did that foundation do specifically, Randy?
I'm sorry?
What did the Heal the World Foundation do?
The purpose of Heal the World and the foundation was to disperse food and money to underprivileged areas all around the world. And Michael took it on as a very personal and very intense cause. It's very important to him.
There was some discussion that there would be a version of We Are the World sung at this memorial service, but you were saying how many parts that requires, and clearly the London troupe was able to fill those roles. But you remember when that song came out?
Yeah, when Quincy and
Oh, hold on 2 seconds.
For coming out. As you know, I'm lost for words. I was his voice and his backbone. I had his back, so did the family. But we thank you. That's all I can say. We thank you very much. I hurt. I stand here trying to find words of comfort, solace, trying to understand why the Lord has taken our brother to return home from such a short visit here on earth. Michael, when you left us, a part of me went with you. And a part of you will live forever within me, but also a part of you will live forever within all of us. Michael, I would treasure the good times, the fun we had, singing, dancing, laughing. I can remember when we used to come home from school and we would grab a quick bite to eat and we'd try to watch the Three Stooges, as much of it as possible before Mother would come in and say it's time to go to the recording studio. I also, Michael, remember a time when I went into the record store and there was this man purchasing a lot of CDs, and he would go and grab another batch of CDs. He was an older gentleman. He had short afro, butt crooked teeth, and his clothes were rumpled. I walked up behind him and said, "Michael, what are you doing in this store?" He turned to me and said, "Marlon, how did you know it was me?" I told him, "You're my brother. I can spot you anywhere, regardless of your makeup. I know your walk, I know your body language, and those shoes did not help." Michael wore the same shoes wherever we went. But I guess that was his way of trying to experience what we take for granted. We would never understand what he endured. Not being able to walk across the street without a crowd gathering around him. Being judged, ridiculed. How much pain can one take? Maybe now, Michael, they will leave you alone. Michael was the voice of our angelic trumpets, and he will continue to be the voice, that angelic voice in heaven, nearest to our Creator. and waiting us when our day comes to pass. Michael, I love you. I will miss when we said our goodbyes. I will hug you and I say I love you, and your response was, I love you more. You know, the Lord has a purpose for everything. And sometimes we just can't see it or understand it. But it will be made clear to us when we reach that ultimate reward of being in His presence. And Michael, you're there. You're right there. You have finished your work here on earth, and the Lord has called for you to come home with Him. So I thank you, Michael. I thank you for all the smiles that you've placed in many people's hearts. And I thank you for everything that you've done for others across this globe in the Lord's name. And I have one request, Michael, one request. I would like for you to give our brother, my twin brother, Brandon, a hug for me. I love you, Michael, and I'll miss you. I thank you. Janet, want to say something?
I just wanted to say, speak up, sweetheart, speak up. Get close. Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine. And I just wanted to say I love him so much.
We want to thank you all for loving my brother and supporting our family. Thank you and good night.
Talk about putting a human face on a very personal loss. You know, lest we forget, this man was a brother and a father and a son and a very important person in a family's life. I think 11-year-old Paris Jackson, I think, just reminded the world that this was a man and not just a musician or a dancer or a performer.
Yes. I mean, you know, every generation has its artists that are produced. You know, in the 50s there was Elvis Presley, and in the 60s, and those were the icons of that period. And the icon that emerged in the 1970s was Michael Jackson. And he sustained through the 80s and 90s to the present time. And he's going to be greatly missed by so many people.
But he'll live on, and it will go beyond that.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I said, my youngest child, my children today are still crazy about Michael Jackson music. And they see his videos, and the same excitement exists.
The music sustains his legacy, there's no doubt about it.
I thought it was a very, very moving and loving tribute.
Yes.
And you really can't underestimate the amount of time and energy involved in putting together something like this, logistics, the people and doing the numbers, and I thought it was beautifully done. There were tears and tributes, of course. There was laughter and music, Michael Jackson's music, sung by the people who really knew him the best. For example, Jermaine Jackson, who sang Smile, Though Your Heart Is Breaking, which really, I think, sums up the mood of what we saw here today at the Staples Center. And in a surprise, by the way, the Jackson family brought his casket to the Staples Center for the service, his brothers serving as pallbearers, each wearing a single glove on their left hand, which of course was Michael's trademark. The thousands of people at the service and people all over the world heard performances by Stevie Wonder, Mariah Carey, Lionel Richie. I think Brooke Shields spoke beautifully about their shared childhood experiences and someone who could relate very well to Michael. The family, by the way, has not yet made public their plans for Michael's final resting place. But I guess we'll be hearing much more about this story because the world seems fascinated with Michael Jackson and his legacy.
The world has been fascinated by Michael Jackson since the 1970s. And to say what you will about him, he has been so important to the fabric of our culture and the soundtrack of our lives. And the music will live on. Don't you agree, Kenny?
Totally. So it's here forever. So we can be proud about today and what happened and how well it went and all the love that was put into the service. And I was a little concerned about being out here and not being inside, but I think Michael would have been glad that I was here.
Well, I think you really were able to give us some extraordinary insights from someone who really did know Michael Jackson. There are a lot of people who say they do, a lot of hangers-on, a lot of people, as you told me, he never knew he could trust. So we really appreciate you being here and sharing your memories with us and, sacrificing the opportunity to be inside. Kenny Babyface Edmonds and Randy Taraborelli, thank you both so much.
Thank you so much, Katie, for having us here.
Thank you. And there will be more about the Michael Jackson story on your local news on this CBS station, then on tonight's CBS Evening News. And I'll be anchoring a special edition of 48 Hours, Michael Jackson, The Last Dance, tonight at 9 Central. Until then, I'm Katie Couric in Los Angeles. I'll see you again soon.